A rare timeout today for Theresa May. Carefully scripted stops, captive audiences only. Her nearly 2 years on the job, mostly a sprint to deliver Brexit to a country divided, nothing if not hectic and turbulent. A year out, does she think it will be worth it?
I think there's a bright future out there. And yes, I think Brexit is going to deliver. A country, it will be different, but I think there are real opportunities for us as an independent nation for the future.
When Britain went for Brexit and she inherited 10 Downing Street, few imagined she'd survive long.
I think she's probably their best hope, but I don't think that means that she's qualified for the job.
But her fate would converge with Brexit's, whose beginnings are chronicled in the very first issue of the monthly Brexit comic.
We are a very divided country still, and the problem is there is no place to go to talk about that, which is why, for me, the Brexit comic is the place to go. We are not informed even now.
The problem is, no one yet knows where the Brexit story is going.
I wouldn't want to make any predictions other than one of the guys standing behind her will start the stabbing and the rest of them will jump in and try and take her job.
Likely not before she sees Brexit through, to the benefit of all British, she says. And yet doubts remain among the Remainers, who believe Britain has been swindled, expectations defying reality. A younger generation especially galled by allegations the Leave campaign may have cheated. They'd like a second vote.
You know, the word illegal and Brexit is really serious. So I feel, I don't know what the answer is, but this needs to be taken seriously. This can't be swept under the carpet like we're so used to.
Come what may, she says, Brexit will happen. Her popularity's seen a little bump since her response to the nerve agent attack. But the tight Brexit deadline is what keeps her afloat.
I think she may, if she lasts another year, be remembered as the person who dealt with the problem left by her predecessor, David Cameron, who in his very cavalier manner left her a very difficult thing to deal with.
Brexit, in whatever form, will be her legacy. Nala Ayed, CBC News, London.
For many fishermen in Cornwall on the southwest tip of England, March 2019 cannot come soon enough. The end, they believe, of EU interference in their livelihoods. With Brexit, the hope is local fishermen will take back control of their waters. But as Margaret Evans explains, they could be in for a raw deal.
Dawn, and the promise of riches on the horizon for those who wait. For the fishermen of Cornwall, the waiting is nearly over, and with it will come liberation, or so they believe.
We are an island race. This is what we do. We go to sea and trading and fishing.
David Stevens skippers a trawler out of Newlyn Harbour. He says his government betrayed its own fleet by allowing European boats access to Britain's waters when it joined the EU back in 1973.
It was sold out to go into the EU. It's now being sold out to get out of the EU, which is just unbelievable.
EU quotas mean that nearly 60% of the fish caught in waters around the UK are landed by other EU fleets. There are complicated reasons: historical catches, sustainability, and the transient nature of fish. But it grates.
25 different species, and each one has a different quota level. And the UK has very little quota for quite a few of those species, so trying to manage that catch is just unbelievably difficult.
And there are worries history could repeat, even as Britain leaves the EU.
Most of the fish landed at Newlyn Harbour is actually exported, and in fact, 75% of the entire British catch goes to the European Union, and that gives the EU a bargaining chip down the road.
620, 640, 60, 680, 680.
Exporters battle it out for the best of the catch at Newlands Fish Market every morning, not always getting what they want. Edwin Hosking wants out of the EU, but he hopes it won't affect his access to their markets.
We do export 30% of our fish, and we have assurances from the French supermarkets that nothing's going to change on their part. We shall still get the orders.
But if Britain wants to keep its access to EU markets, then Europe will surely demand to keep its access to British waters. And the government might give in. The fishing industry may tug at the heartstrings, but it accounts for less than 1% of Britain's economy. And not everyone in Cornwall thinks they'll be better off outside the EU. Skipper Tom McClure voted to stay in.
I voted to remain for a lot of different reasons, really. It wasn't just about fishing, I just saw the broader picture, really. The EU is very good at giving out grants and stuff like that, and that was part of the basis. I've had 3 grants to do work on this boat.
You might not look it, but Cornwall is one of the poorest regions in Britain, and as such, entitled to substantial EU funding. The Newland fish market, for example, is getting a facelift courtesy of EU money. Farmers and the flower industry also rely on EU workers, taking the jobs some in Cornwall won't. Even David Stevens employs Latvian crewmen aboard his trawler. But for him, he says, it's a question of identity.
If it wasn't for the sea, there wouldn't be an island race. We wouldn't be the people we are. We are British because we have the sea.
And so they wait for what they hope will be a new dawn, not just for the fisheries, but a way of life. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Cornwall.